Sweet Nibong, and welcome back to my channel where we talk about all things Transformers and Transformers action figure related. And today on the channel we're going to have a look at something that is very classic and pretty dear to my heart as well, because this is the first ever Transformers annual that I got. Now in the UK, I'm not sure about if you have these over in the States and other parts of the world, but over in the UK, annually around this time of year, so around Christmas time, every single year, they do kind of a kids annual, like a hardback book that puts together cartoons, stories, games, all kinds of things around your favorite franchises and puts it into a nice little book to give to somebody for Christmas. And this is the original 1985 annual for the Transformers. The artwork on the front of this is absolutely gorgeous. That kind of classic Marvel style 80s artwork that they used for front covers, based more around the kind of robots and the toys rather than the versions from the cartoons. So this is based more around there. So you've got Jazz there with his oversized arm cannons, Prime looking a lot more blocky obviously and looking a lot more like the figure that you got. But I think it's beautiful. You know, you've got the Seekers in the background there, Starscream, you've also got Sunstreaker here as well. I think it's just an absolutely beautiful front cover. The back is exactly the same, apart from you get your barcode there and the people who actually released this. So this wasn't released as a straight up Marvel. It was a Marvel and Grand Dreams production there, and it just says Transformers Annual. When we crack this bad boy open on the first page, you can see you get some kind of colouring system here so that you can colour it in, and it explains to you who Optimus Prime is. You can also fill your name in and put who this book belongs to, and it was £3.25 back in the day. You get the two badges, so you get the Autobot and the Decepticon, and you can just colour all this in. This is the kind of idea on the front page here. Then as we open it up, we get this classic artwork here for the Decepticons. Beautiful looking Starscreams, Megatrons, Ravage, Skywarp, Soundwave, Rumble, it says, Frenzy in my eyes, and Laserbeak as well. And it just says like I am, so it's like, I am Megatron, the leader of Decepticons, cunning and ruthless. I shall not rest until I've conquered the Autobots and rule Earth and Cybertron. So this is just a quick explanation of who each character is, because obviously at this time they were still trying to actually introduce the Transformers. So I believe this was the first ever annual, or at least it was the second one if it wasn't the first one. We open it up then, and then we start off with the first story here, and we start to see the Marvel drawings, and this is where you can tell they really did take a lot more inspiration from the toys here, because I mean, if you look at Ratchet here, that's definitely a lot more like the toy, and the same with Ironhide. Bumblebee on this picture actually, he looks a little bit like a cross between the two, between his cartoon version and the Marvel Comics version. Later on in the comic, the artwork for him later on, if I just show you where that is, you can see it's a lot closer to the actual version that we got from the figure. So you can see he's got the thin head with the plate that just comes up there, so that you get a mix of styles for the drawings of the bots even in this. So very similar to the previous page for the Decepticons, this page is used to kind of introduce the Autobots. So you can see they say their name and then they say a little bit about themselves on each section, so you get to know a little bit about each one. As I said, that at this point they are still trying to introduce the concept of Transformers to everybody, because you may not have been watching the comic. This may be the first time that you are getting exposed to the Transformers and you don't know anything about them. So then moving on past this first kind of more introductory page, we set up the story of the Transformers and the first time that they meet the President of the United States, who looks a little bit like Ronald Reagan. I don't think they use his name, but definitely a likeness for Ronald Reagan there, because it is the 80s after all. So he meets them and tells them that he's read a lot about them, but it's a little bit off-putting having a conversation with a truck or a lorry. And as soon as they transform, who comes out but the Insecticons? And this story is called The Plague of the Insecticons. So you see that they kind of transform out of nowhere, and you go back. Prime's confused, and so's Jazz, because they've done everything they can do to keep this meeting as secret as possible. But of course, Soundwave has been monitoring all of the airwaves of Earth, so they found out about it. And what happens here is actually quite clever, because they say to Optimus, "Great Optimus, we hear your command. We shall take the battle to the city itself and finish off the soldiers." So what they're trying to do here, as Prime rightly states, is they're not here to destroy them, but their name. And the army get all pissed off and think that they are all part of the same horrible race of monstrous aliens that are going to destroy planet Earth rather than save us. And we see that they start to wreak havoc and destruction on the cities. So Warpath and Prowl have to go and try and deal with them, and the story then revolves around them having to clear their name. What's a little bit kind of, well, not frustrating, it's just the way that these things are, is that the story continues. So the story goes on until page 17. Yeah, 18, sorry. And then to finish off the story, you have to go all the way to the back. And then it picks back up on page 51 and goes through the rest of the story, where of course the Autobots save the day, foil the plot. You get to see Roller as well in this story, so that's fairly nice. He has a bit more of a prominent part there within this story. And Ravage is also in the story as well. And then of course everything ends up at the end, and you get to see a really good picture of who is unmistakably Ronald Reagan. What it also says here though is that the president is not going to trust the Autobots again. "I trusted them. It looks like I made a mistake. I cannot afford to make such a mistake again." He's told the soldiers obviously to hold back from attacking the Autobots so much, but the damage has been dealt to the human race. So that's the first story that we get there. The artwork on this is the old style artwork. I think it's, for me, it has dated a little bit here. This is actually still quite good. It's quite classic. Later on, some of the artwork gets a bit more dodgier as you go through the years, but when they started, it was still there and it looks quite dodgy. Some people don't like it. I think it's difficult to judge it by, obviously today's standards are vastly improved, but if you look at it with a kind of classical rose tinted glasses, then it has its place. It's nice, and in some parts, I mean, like that version of Prowl there looks absolutely beautiful, but the Insecticons here, you know, it is what it is. It's 80s artwork, right? Here we get a first little bit of a game. Obviously these were released around Christmas, so the idea was that you were going to sit around with your family and do all of these activities together. You're off school, so hey, you got some other stuff to do here. So you need to find the exact outline of the fastest Autobot cliff jumper. So what you're looking for is the correct picture. So where's the correct picture? You can see he's mistransformed here, and you can see he's mistransformed in other sections, and he's mistransformed in other places. So look for the one that isn't mistransformed. Hey, we should send this to Hasbro. Maybe it will help them with their promotion shots now. The next story is more of like a storybook type thing with some big artwork in it as well. So it moves away from the kind of Marvel Comics type one and reminds me more of the Ladybird books that we used to get in the UK. So I don't know if the stories actually come from the Ladybird books, but it looks a little bit more like them. And this is almost like a track spotlight, but it's a bit of an odd one because he's kind of the star of the show, but also MIA and unable to transform. So the story here kicks off with Trax and Frenzy. I don't care, it's Frenzy. Trax and Frenzy having a fight, and as you can see, Trax comes off the worse for wear here, takes one to the chest, and it describes quite graphically Frenzy basically taking apart Trax blow by blow by blow so that he cannot transform anymore. So he gets completely stuck in his car mode. He transforms there and then loses the last of his energy by turning into his car mode. Once stuck in car mode, Optimus Prime realizes that he's gone and he's missing for what seems like weeks on end, misses some very, very important meetings, and he gets involved or gets picked up by two bank robbers, and these two bank robbers then take control of Trax, and Trax is unable to do anything about this. Cosmos is kind of tasked with trying to find him, and so is Inferno and Grapple, and eventually he's found by this young kid. Interesting here that they don't have the flames on the front of Trax's car mode here, so that's quite an interesting thing. Again, this is a continued one, so it stops there and then it actually continues on to page 30, and during a bank robbery, the two people who are using Trax as a getaway car get involved when everything goes horrifically wrong. They take some hostages and eventually the whole place goes on fire, but luckily Inferno and Grapple are also there to help and get everybody else out in time. And then there's a lesson for Trax. So the injured get carried away, everything is fine in the end. But Trax learns a very good lesson. So the full lesson that Trax has to listen to is obviously he sat through kind of the worst of humanity, and before this he's been quite obsessed with the whole human thing and loves the culture, but after seeing how bad these two humans were and them almost killing other humans, Trax asks the question, do they not deserve to be ruled by the Decepticons? To which Prime responds, there are also countless honest humans, and it is those we are sworn to protect. And these are the words Trax never forgot. So a nice little story there of Trax and how he almost lost his faith in humanity, but obviously Prime, being the leader that he is, set him back on track. We then get a Cybertron. Oh, we get another quiz if we need to go back here, which is just an anagram here. What's the major flaw here? See if anybody can work that out. Drop it down in the comments. We then get a Decepticon matchup, so you have to match the con to its alt mode, which is pretty cool. You know, I haven't done this. Obviously, you know, you can see which one is which, and there's some very crude line drawings here of each one to take it to. But a nice little thing there for the kids. Then we get to another Marvel Comics story, but it's a different Marvel Comics story. And there shall come a leader. And this is actually a Cybertronian story. So this is Tales from Cybertron. So this goes before they came to Earth. So in this story, we see the rise of Optimus Prime. So it starts off with Zaron in the council complaining about the politicians. Yes, he does look a little bit like Megatron here, but it's not Megatron. We see Prime on the battlefield, but Prime's getting a little bit dismayed because the politicians are not allowing them to do what they need to do. Zaron is basically leading the charge for Prime with the rest of the council at Iacon to say, hey, let the Autobots do what the Autobots need to do. Let the warriors fight instead of holding back against the Decepticons who are making their final push on Iacon. We see a very Star Wars-esque looking targeting system here, very Star Wars looking, very 80s, pretty cool. And we see the fight going on, Prime overlooking what he can see, and then also, again, this is continued later on, we also see Megatron surveying the scene. I always think Megatron with this kind of golden type fall here, he looks like he was kind of left in a smoker's house for too long. So this is what your figures will look like for Megatron if he's left in a house where everybody smokes. He then Prime gets the call from Zaron to say, you're now in control, do what you need to do, you now lead the fight, Prime. So Prime takes charge of the Autobots and takes it to Megatron, who is making his final push, and as we can see is ruthlessly slaughtering the Autobots as he goes through. The Autobots realize that they are overwhelmed, and Prime has his battle with Megatron in this, the first of many, on this bridge, and the bridge collapses. Then they've set these bombs as a trap for Megatron, and they both fall, but unfortunately, as always, Megatron lives to tell the tale. And then it says about how the fight was going to come to war. Again, nice little tale of how Prime became the leader. It doesn't say how he became a Prime, but it does say how he became the leader of the Autobots. So it's a nice little story there. Here, there's the Autobot version of the Decepticon. Match the vehicle mode or the alt mode to the bot mode. I have actually completed this one while I was a child apparently, but couldn't be bothered doing the Decepticon one. Then there's a little game. There's a little game to play. So the idea of this game is that you have your starting point here, and that you make it to the Red Castle, or be the first to make it to the Red Castle, and you roll a dice. And because this is hexagons, you can see here you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And if say you roll a 3, then you would move, I guess, 3 in this direction away from the castle, and if you did the same again, you'd piss off over there, I guess. And the idea is that you make it to the Red Castle. Now, this game, I believe, could take forever by playing it that way. I'm not sure how interesting and exciting it is. It has very little to do with Transformers, but hey, it's a little game that's in there if you want to play it. So the final story is Hunted, and in this final story we see Bumblebee really frustrated that nobody will let him get involved in anything that involves any kind of action. So they're looking at the scanners and they're looking for what's going on Earth, and they finally find a little bit of action because Ravage has had a bit of a tumble with some humans and lost a piece of his armor, and they see it on the scanners. And I just want to say this is an absolutely beautiful piece of artwork done here, absolutely amazing, really cool. I love this older artwork, kind of more like I say the Ladybird style. I think this is fantastic, beautiful looking artwork there. So as they're going through it, they actually find the piece of the armor here, and this is the picture of it, so you can see Prowl and Bumblebee there looking at it, and they decide to go and investigate. Prowl doesn't really want to, but Bumblebee just says it's very important that we do. So they go to the jungle to investigate. Other people included in this story include people like Topspin and Twin Twist, but we don't actually see any artwork for those as we go through. Bumblebee has a tussle with a snake. Nice. Bloody big snake. And then when they get to the jungle, obviously they find Megatron up to his old tricks again. No pictures of Megatron as we go through this. Oh, we do have Twin Twist though. We do have Twin Twist. I was incorrect in my assumptions there. Also, in this one, Thrust is also part of this story, and basically when they get there, they want to know why Megatron is trying to use the humans, and as always, he's looking for something in some deep dark caves and wants to use the humans as the labor force for this. And a bomb goes off and an avalanche is caused by these bombs, and then because of the avalanche, obviously everybody gets buried, but Megatron and the rest of the cons get to unbury themselves, but the bots have to save the humans. On the next page, we do get Hound's scrambled word message. So this is Hound's scrambled word message. drop it down in the comments. So I hope you enjoyed this little trip down memory lane and taking a look with me at these annuals. I really used to love these annuals as a kid. I do have, I think, two or three more of these annuals. This is another one to look at next year. But I used to love these as a kid. Obviously we don't really get too many of these now from the Transformers, and if we do, it's more based around the Bayverse ones. We don't get any of the IDW ones for obvious reasons, because these are more aimed at children. Let me know your thoughts on this down in the comments. Have you still got these? How many have you got? I think I have 3 of these. I'm not quite sure where the other one is at the moment. I'll have to have a look for it. But yeah, let me know your thoughts on this and everything else in the comments. And of course, please have a happy holidays and happy Christmas, whatever you're doing at this time of year, even if it's just spending time with your family. I hope you all have a fantastic year, and thank you very much for the support you have shown me in 2020. Alright guys, and I'll see you in a bit. Peace!